The anime starts with our protagonist named Kusanagi Kid, who is pondering the universe and the passage of time when suddenly a spaceship arrives and lands in the middle of the lake, causing a huge whirlpool. Key watches in astonishment as a woman emerges from the spacecraft and starts following him, so he flees from her. In a moment of distraction, he falls into the water. However, when he opens his eyes, he finds himself at his school, leading him to believe that it was all just a dream. Then he tries to talk about the whirlpool he saw in the lake, but he's interrupted by Hyosuke, a classmate who informs them that they will have a new teacher as their current teacher has resigned. As Key listens, he feels like he's about to faint but manages to resist. Hyosuke shares the rumor about the new teacher's exceptional beauty, and he's proven right when a stunning woman enters the classroom. Key, gradually regaining his consciousness, recognizes her from the previous night. However, she introduces herself shyly as their teacher, Mizuho Kazami. Later, upon arriving home, he asks his uncle Minoru to examine him, but everything seems fine. Instead, his uncle tries to inquire about the new teacher, as rumors spread quickly in a small town. Key only mentions that she's pretty and retreats to his room. Then, while looking out from his balcony, he sees his teacher moving into the house next door. She'll be his neighbor, so he rushes down to help her with her things. While carrying a box, he stumbles and falls on top of Mizuho, who unexpectedly reveals that she remembers him from the previous night at the lake. Key faints, and upon waking up, he explains that he'd had fainting spells since he was a child. But then he recalls the events from last night and rushes out, only for Mizuho to teleport him to her spaceship to explain what's happening and ensure the secrecy of their encounter. Key finds himself trapped, and Mizuho tries to gain his trust by following her human manual. However, all she manages to do is make him start running through the ship until he reaches the control room, where Marie is piloting the ship. He pushes Marie aside abruptly and starts pressing all the buttons in an attempt to escape. Mizuho realizes their location as the ship begins moving over the lake and gravity becomes unstable. She rushes to the control room and wakes up Marie to restore everything, but the teleportation system malfunctions and sends Key to another dimension. Mizuho rushes to rescue him and asks Marie to bring them back before they are engulfed by a black hole. She teleports them hastily, and they end up in Key's uncle's bathtub. Quickly, Minoru enters to see who's invading his home, and he comes face to face in what appears to be a somewhat compromising situation, which ignites envy in Minoru. The next day, Key is worried about what he will tell his aunt and uncle, as they postpone the conversation to that day after school. On her part, Mizuho is nervous because everyone is talking about the UFO over the lake, but she's also concerned about giving an explanation to Key's aunt and uncle. During lunchtime, teacher Mizuho teleports Key to the gym storage room to discuss what they will tell his aunt and uncle. Suddenly, someone arrives and upon leaving, locks the door. Mizuho asks Marie to teleport them back, but she makes a mistake and teleports herself to their location instead. To make matters worse, Marie runs out of energy and falls asleep. Mizuho explains that Marie is the one who controls the ship's system, and she's been acting strangely since last night, so Key realizes that it's his fault for pushing her so abruptly. With no other options, they are forced to wait for Marie to wake up because if they ask for help and are seen trapped, Mizuho could get into trouble due to being alone with the student. As the sun starts to set and hunger sets in, Mizuho takes out some snacks, which catches Key's attention. He finds it surprising that she has such Earth-like tastes despite being on Earth for only a couple of days. Mizuho then explains that her father was actually from Earth, so she's familiar with those snacks, and that specific brand reminds her of her father. On the other hand, the protagonist's friends search for him at his house. Minoru tells them that he's sleeping, trying to cover for him, as he suspects that Key must be with his teacher. Back with Key, also confides his secret to Mizuho to level the playing field. He's 18 years old, but he's in high school because his illness placed him in a coma for 3 years. Mysteriously, his body didn't develop during that time, so now he appears younger. Since he's the only person on Earth with this illness, there's no known treatment or cure, and he has to live with it. Key promises Mizuho that he won't tell anyone about her secret, which makes her start to trust him more. She suggests telling his relatives that they are dating as an explanation for why they were together in the bathtub, a plan that he finds fitting to protect her secret. In gratitude, Mizuho kisses him on the cheek, and they nearly share a kiss if it weren't for Minoru finding them, remarking that getting locked in the gym is a classic move. However, the principal also catches them because Minoru had asked him for the key, mistaking him for the janitor. So he calls them to his office to talk. Mizuho tries to help by blaming herself, which the principal agrees with since she's of legal age. He was about to reprimand Mizuho when Minoru steps in. He claims that neither of them has done anything improper because they're married. The principal is skeptical, but Key reinforces his uncle's lie by revealing he's 18 years old, explaining his 3-year delay in school due to his illness, and asserting that he's married to Mizuho. To make the lie believable, Key and Mizuho actually sign the marriage papers. As a result, when the principal goes to the civil registry, he discovers that they are indeed married. He congratulates them and assures them that he will keep the secret since it's better for the students not to find out. Key's friends notice that he has been acting strangely lately, as he used to always go home with them, but now he seems more isolated. Meanwhile, Key is dragged into living at Mizuho's house now that they are husband and wife, just in case the principal comes to observe their relationship. His uncle helps organize a small ceremony to celebrate their wedding, which means a lot to Mizuho. As being an extraterrestrial, she always wanted to know how Earth weddings were like. Unfortunately for him, his friends suspected that Key might be visiting the teacher since she's his neighbor. So they decide to go to Mizuho's house to investigate, and Key has to hide on the terrace so his friends don't see him while Mizuho receives them super nervously. Key's friends are in full interrogation mode, searching the entire house for anything suspicious. Even Hyosuk goes out to the terrace despite Mizuho telling him not to. As a result, Key has to grip the edge of the balcony to avoid being discovered but ends up falling, drawing the attention of the others, so he ends up hiding in a doghouse, but the dog inside gets annoyed and starts nipping at him. Finally, Kay manages to escape, and in order to clear any suspicions, he climbs out of his house window and tells them that he was actually searching for the UFO all this time. Once they leave, Mizuho rushes to tend to Key's wounds. Later, they ponder how to sleep since there's only one futon available, and they agree to sleep together. However, feeling embarrassed, Marie transports them to the spaceship before anything can happen between them. Days pass and the students receive their grades. Mizuho tells Key that he should be concerned about his marks as they are quite low. She offers to help him over the weekend, which triggers envy among his classmates. However, Key isn't too pleased about being treated like a child. To make matters worse, Mizuho will be arriving home late that day, so Key has to have dinner at his uncle's house. Then Kai receives a phone call from Harakawa, inviting him to the movies with the rest of the gang on Sunday. He remembers he was supposed to study with Mizuho that day, but after some thought, he agrees to go anyway. Later, he returns home and waits for Mizuho, but she's delayed and arrives quite due to having to socialize with the other teachers. Key seizes the opportunity and tells her that he also needs to socialize with his friends, so he's going out with them instead of studying. On Sunday, Harakawa goes alone to pick up Key, claiming that the movie schedule changed and the others will meet them at the theater. Mizuho is watching from her window, and upon seeing them together, she starts suspecting it might be a date. She isn't entirely wrong, as Harakawa's friends later make excuses not to join, leaving Harakawa and Key alone. As they're there, they decide to watch the movie and take a stroll while waiting for it to start. Meanwhile, Mizuho has been secretly observing them the whole time, making sure that Key isn't being unfaithful. Harakawa's friends also show up to check on how the date is going, and they notice Mizuho's presence and her suspicious behavior. They call her from a distance, and she flees thinking she's been caught. Unfortunately, her escape leads her to collide with Key and Harakawa, revealing her presence. She tries to convince them that she's following Key because her uncle is concerned about him and she wants to take care of him. Key tries not to show his anger towards Mizuho, so he apologizes and goes back home. Mizuho apologizes to Harakawa, and as soon as she's out of sight, disappears. Actually, she teleports to where Key is to apologize for spying on him, but Key becomes agitated due to the upset, and he can't say much as his heart begins to race and he faints. Hours later, Kei wakes up and apologizes to Mizuho for his childish behavior. However, he also directly asks if she feels comfortable with him. Mizuho admits to being unsure, but she's realized that she doesn't want to be without Kei, especially after fearing losing him and being alone. Kei tries to kiss her, but Mizuho gets embarrassed and confesses that she already kissed him while he was sleeping, revealing that it was the first kiss for both of them. With this newfound understanding, they both feel at ease and walk home hand in hand. Days later, Key and Mizuho go on vacation to an island where nobody knows them, allowing them to be themselves. Mizuho looks stunning in a swimsuit, and Key has to discreetly handle the reaction that occurs beneath his pants. While heading to the hotel, they notice someone assembling an airplane, which reminds them of a teacher from their school who's into the same hobby, Professor Yamada. Unfortunately, he's there with Key's friends, who will be brought along to assist him. The guys recognize Mizuho, so Key has to slip away to prevent them from seeing them together. Unfortunately, his friend Ichigo discovers him, and he has to say that he's on a family trip, but they haven't arrived yet. Luckily, they don't press for more details. Now he has to stay and help the professor because apparently he has nothing else to do while waiting for his family. After several hours, he finally returns to the hotel and can be alone with Mizuho. However, she decides to go explore the hotel, and they unexpectedly run into Key's friends again, as it turns out that the professor had arranged for his students to stay there. To avoid raising suspicions, Mizuho suggests that the students go have fun elsewhere while the teachers chat. Kate hangs out with his friends, although he mostly ends up watching them play. Mizuho, on the other hand, finds it hard to follow the subjects Professor Yamada is discussing. Later, they all return to their rooms, choosing one to hang out together. Mizuho discreetly hands the room keycard to Key, signaling him to join her later. The group then enjoys some drinks, plays cards, and engages in conversation. It's getting late, and Mizuho is waiting for Key in her room while he keeps checking the time, wishing to join her. However, Harakawa takes Key out to buy some things, and as he gets up, his room keycard falls without him noticing. While outside, Harakawa stops Key because she needs to express her feelings and wants to confirm if he feels the same. Meanwhile, at the hotel, The group is returning to their rooms, and as they collect their keys, they accidentally mix them up. As a result, Hyosuk enters Ki's room, where in her half-awake state, she mistakes him for a part of her dream and impulsively kisses him. On the other hand, Madavu enters Ki and Mizuho's room while half asleep and inadvertently touches Mizuho. Both of them wake up startled, and Mizuho's scream is so loud that it's heard outside. Ki, who can hear her scream, rushes back to their room and finds Mizuho crying because someone entered her room and touched her chest. He apologizes for not being there, and to help Mizuho calm down, they go to the beach together. Mizuho confesses that she felt nervous when she heard the door to the room open because she thought it was Ki, as she was waiting for him, which makes Ki happy. They are about to kiss when a little girl sees them and starts crying because she had fallen in love with Ki at first sight, and now she sees him kissing the teacher. Mizuho finds this situation quite strange, so she asks Ki who the young girl is, but he has no idea. Even so, she doesn't believe him, and this leads to a tantrum from Mizuho as she walks away in anger. 2 months pass, and the protagonist realizes that their relationship isn't progressing much. He decides to take the initiative and hugs Mizuho from behind. But it's not her. It's her mother, Hatsuho, who had come to meet her daughter's husband. After chatting for a while, Hatsuho notices that Ki is very shy, and she starts having doubts about whether he's suitable to be her daughter's husband. To make matters worse, Mizuho's younger sister, Maho, shows up and disapproves of Ki entirely. She sees him as small, pale, and thin, and she doesn't believe he can make her beautiful sister happy. Later, Ki goes out for a walk to give his family some space to talk. He happens to run into his friends, who mention how odd it is that Hyosuk hasn't left his house since they returned from the beach trip. Curious about the situation, Ki decides to visit Hyosuk later to find out what's going on. He tells Ki that Ki confessed her feelings to him that night, but he's unsure how to react and face her again because he's uncertain if he shares her feelings. Ki suggests that he might consider giving it a try, as some people fall in love after building a relationship, drawing from his own experience. However, Hyosuk remains skeptical. So the next day, Ki drags Hyosuk along to look for Ki, but Hyosuk gets irritated and tells him he's meddling too much. Ki insists that he should do something about it instead of just wasting time. Hyosuk gets irritated and almost throws a punch. However, he quickly realizes Ki is right. He notices that Ki seems to be in love himself based on how he's talking, so he asks him directly. Ki affirms it and admits he plans to confess his feelings to her. Hyosuk fulfills his promise and talks to Ki. He tells her that he doesn't plan to stay in the town for long, as he aims to go to Tokyo and become a successful politician, making it difficult to be with someone from the same town. Ki supports his ambitions but tearfully asks him to allow her to love him, promising to do her best to be by his side wherever he goes. Seeing her cry, Hyosuk can't hold back his feelings any longer and confesses that he loves her too, leading to a positive outcome for them. Ki is delighted for the new couple, which inspires him to muster the courage to confess his feelings to Mizuho. In turn, she confesses that she feels the same way. As they lean in for their first conscious kiss, Maho intervenes, unable to bear witnessing her sister kiss Ki. She asks Miroru to disintegrate Ki, but Miroru is engaged with Marie, leaving Maho frustrated and unable to get rid of the protag. The days pass and things improve for Hyosuk as he and Ki wear matching outfits to make their relationship known to everyone. However, things aren't going as well for Ki. At home, Maho still despises him so much that she even tries to get her mother to seduce him and steal him away to keep him away from her sister. To everyone's surprise, the lady is not entirely opposed to the idea, as she finds Kei reminiscent of her late husband. This infuriates Mizuho, who doesn't want anyone trying to take him away. The next day, Ki continues to help his teacher build the plane and runs into Harakawa. Meanwhile, Mizuho is looking for him, and unable to find him, she sends Marie to search for him. Mary finds him, but startles Harakawa, causing her to fall onto Ki just as Mizuho arrives. This creates a scene that can be misinterpreted. Ki explains that it was all a coincidence, and they are just helping the teacher. However, Mizuho leaves upset, and Maho sees her sister crying and decides she wants to get rid of Ki for hurting her sister. Maho transports Ki to the edge of the universe and tells him that he'll stay there forever for hurting Mizuho. However, Cad refuses to stay silent as he genuinely loves Mizuho. Ignoring him, Maho decides to eliminate him. Ki runs for his life until a lightning bolt strikes nearby. He pretends to be injured, luring Maho closer, and when she approaches, he grabs her to prevent her from attacking further. Still, she continues to argue that being with Mizuho will only hurt her. For a moment, Ki starts to believe her and begins to fade away due to his sadness. This terrifies Maho as his heart is slowing down. Fortunately, Mizuho arrives to rescue Ki and becomes angry with Maho for pushing him to such an extreme. However, upon hearing Mizuho's voice and her plea for him to come back to her, Kei miraculously awakens. Maho realizes that they truly love each other, so she decides to accept her sister's decision. Their mother comments that it's a pity because she genuinely believes she could keep Ki for herself, or that Maho could have had him, which makes Maho nervous. Both of them decide to return to their planet as they can be at ease leaving Mizuho by Ki's side. However, Mavo decides to confirm her mother's words by giving the protagonist a grateful kiss. Unfortunately, Mizuho witnesses this and runs away. Ki explains to Mizuho that it was just an expression of gratitude and he kisses her to show what a real kiss of love looks like. Mizuho is happy but continues to shed tears due to her mixed feelings. A new school term begins and Kei oversleeps due to being accustomed to the vacation schedule, with Mizuho forgetting to set an alarm. He rushes to get ready but still ends up arriving late. In contrast, Mizuho, being the teacher, is able to provide an excuse for her tardiness. When Ki finally arrives at class, Mizuho scolds him for being late, which slightly annoys him as he thinks she could have let it slide, especially considering her own lateness. On the other hand, Katie is extremely happy with her relationship with Hyosuke. She's surprised by how different he is when they're alone, much kinder and more gentlemanly than she expected. However, Hirakawa is feeling a bit more disheartened because things didn't work out for her. Meanwhile, Madagu wants to try his luck as well, so he decides to ask Mizuho out, which catches Ki's attention. At night, Ki mentions Madagu's plan to Mizuho, but she doesn't seem concerned since she only sees him as a student. However, Ki appears to be jealous and Mizuho suggests it to him, but Ki denies it. Later, Kai receives a call from Hirakawa, who wants to meet and talk with him right away. Ki decides to use this opportunity to make Mizuho jealous, so he agrees. However, his plan backfires when Madagu also calls Mizuho and she agrees to go out with him, intending to give Kei a taste of his own medicine. Ki meets Hirakawa at the train station, and there's a moment of silence between them. Ki begins to say that he has things to do and tries to leave, but Hirakawa stops him. She gathers her courage and confesses once again that she loves him and wants to be by his side. Ki steps back a bit and tells her that he's already in love with another girl. He admits that sometimes he feels inadequate for that girl, but he wants to stay by her side and can't accept Hirakawa's proposal. In that moment, Hirakawa puts on a brave face and lets Ki go, sensing his urgency. He rushes off to find Mizuho, while Hirakawa returns home with tears in her eyes. Hirakawa goes to the professor's workshop to avoid going home while she's upset. She explains that her confession didn't go well. The professor, being wise, reassures her that she shouldn't worry. He shares with her a moment of wisdom, saying that often the most important aspect of what one does isn't the outcome, but the journey itself. As long as she doesn't regret her actions, she can find solace in everything she's experienced. On the protagonist's side, he finds Mizuho studying with Madagu, so he joins them to prevent them from being alone. When they finish, the protagonist confesses to Mizuho that he feels guilty for rejecting Hirakawa. He explains that in choosing to be with her, he unintentionally hurt Hirakawa. However, Mizuho doesn't see his actions as wrong because he followed his heart's desire. This realization makes the protagonist realize that he was trying to avoid the consequences of acting on his heart's desires. Now he's determined to embrace the path he's chosen with Mizuho, and she wholeheartedly agrees. Having accepted his feelings fully, he decides to be straightforward. That night, he goes directly to Mizuho to express his feelings for her without any hesitation. The next day, the protagonist heads to school happier than ever. However, upon seeing Hirakawa, he becomes conflicted as he notices her sadness in contrast to his happiness. This feeling lingers throughout the day, and both Mizuho and Ichigo notice that something unusual is happening between them. Ichigo interrogates Hirakawa, and Hirakawa ends up confessing that she confessed her feelings to Ki and was outright rejected. She tries to emphasize that she's okay with how things are between them and wants to maintain the current situation, but Ichigo encourages her to be more persistent because it's clear that it's not what she truly desires. However, Hirakawa doesn't want to dwell, but she, overwhelmed by her emotions, involuntarily starts crying and leaves the conversation. The next day, Ichigo calls him to talk, as she was the one who encouraged Hirakawa to confess in the hopes that it would make her happy, but it turned out quite the opposite. He can't do much about it as he's just following his heart, so Ichigo becomes frustrated thinking about what Hirakawa must be going through. This stress leads Ichigo to faint, and Ki realizes that she also suffers from the same condition he has, where they both faint under certain emotional pressures. Kei takes her home, and when she wakes up, he tells her that he also suffers from the same condition. However, Ichigo was unconscious for a much longer time than he was. Now she just wants her new friends to be happy. That's why she tried her best to support Ki and Hirakawa. But now she's unsure of what to do because she feels stuck and unable to help the people she cares about. Ki then asks her not to give up and encourages her to try to move forward with her life. Kei comes to the conclusion that he needs to make Ichigo happy to prevent her from fading away. He considers dating Hirakawa to show Ichigo that all their friends are happy. Due to this, he asks Mizuho if they can stop living together. However, Mizuho is hesitant as she considers it a drastic decision. Ki, though, is concerned about Ichigo fading away due to the sadness of seeing her friend unhappy. Despite the fact that he himself might fade away by distancing himself from Mizuho, he decides to take the risk and move back to his old house. However, as soon as he arrives in his room, he feels like he's fading away. Despite this, he pushes himself to move forward on his own. Another day, Ki calls Hirakawa to talk and shares that the person he had feelings for rejected him. However, he clarifies that he didn't call her for that reason, he simply wanted to see her and have a conversation. Hirakawa is happy, realizing that the way is now clear for her. She then asks Ki if they can be more than just friends, even if they're not officially dating yet, and Ki agrees. Everyone celebrates that Harakawa and Ki are giving their relationship a chance, while the teacher explains to Ki's uncles what's happening between them. They become concerned about Mizuho's feelings. They can see that she's trying to act like an adult and is sacrificing her own happiness to let Ki help his friend. Kei talks to Ichigo to ensure she's on board with his decision and to encourage her to keep moving forward. As days go by, Kei continues to spend time with Harakawa, making her days joyful, while Mizuho is feeling quite miserable, even though she's trying her best to remain strong. However, one day, Harakawa forgets to give Ki a gift after they've already said their goodbyes. As she rushes to catch up with him, she notices that Ki is taking a different route home. Curious, she follows him and discovers him engaged in what seems like a close conversation with Ichigo. Misinterpreting the situation, she feels betrayed, thinking that Ichigo might be the one Ki was interested in all along, and that he hasn't been able to move on from her. Feeling hurt, she calls him a liar and runs away. Ichigo is on the verge of fading away due to causing harm to Harakawa, but Ki tries to keep her conscious by promising to clarify the situation. They then go after Harakawa, and Ki attempts to talk to her. However, she doesn't trust him and doesn't believe he's truly in love with her. So she challenges him to prove his feelings with a kiss, which Ki agrees to. Suddenly, Mizuho teleports to where Ki is and sees him about to kiss Harakawa. She becomes stunned for a moment and then leaves, crying, so Ki goes after her. Harakawa is puzzled by why her teacher is crying upon seeing them together, and she's even more confused as to why Ki is going after Mizuho. Ichigo then deduces that Mizuho is the girl Ki likes, and she decides to tell Harakawa the whole story about their shared illness with Ki and his efforts to keep both Harakawa and Ichigo happy so that their condition doesn't worsen. However, Harakawa tells her that it's not necessary for Ki to go to such lengths for her, as all she needs when she's upset is her friend's presence to support her. Meanwhile, Ki can't find Mizuho anywhere. He asks Marie to take him with her, and Marie grants his wish by transporting him to the beach where Mizuho is. Caught off guard, Mizuho pleads with Marie to take her away, but Marie refuses, wanting them to talk. Mizuho remains resistant and starts running away, but Ki chases after her and eventually catches up. However, Mizuho shouts that she hates him, shattering Ki's heart, but in an instant, she confesses that she loves him as well. He responds by saying he loves her too, despite all that has transpired, and all he wants is to be by her side. But overwhelmed by the intensity of the situation and the emotions of the day, Ki collapses into Mizuho's arms. Meanwhile, the protagonist finds himself in a dream where he sees a girl talking about how terrible the world is, unable to be happy without experiencing moments of sadness. This girl decides to give up and stop her time to avoid the pain. Mizuho takes a few days off from school to research about Ki's condition. However, she finds nothing in the records of her supercomputer, as Earth is the only planet where such cases have been observed. On the other hand, Harakawa and Ichigo go to check on Ki since he has been absent for several days. Ki's uncles, however, do not want to reveal his true condition and assure them that everything is fine. While sitting by Ki's side, Mizuho shares their journey together, emphasizing that even though not all moments have been happy, she has no doubt in saying that she loves him. Returning to the protagonist's dream, he continues conversing with the girl and ends up being enticed by her idea of stopping time to avoid being unhappy, as being awake brings the possibility of difficult moments. So Ki decides to stop his own time as well. However, right at that moment, the image of Mizuho appears to him. At first, he doesn't recognize her, so she tells him that in the future, they will be husband and wife and that they will be very happy together, even though there will be difficult moments, because those moments remain good when they are together. She promises him that those tears of sadness will always turn into tears of happiness. Then, Kai remembers her and promises to return to her side, but Mizuho disappears from his dream, prompting Ki to make an effort to let time move forward. He realizes that his illness is caused by himself as a defense mechanism against suffering, so he apologizes to the girl in his dream and tries to wake up. Upon opening his eyes, he finds himself with his aunt, who tells him that he'll be late for school if he doesn't hurry. He rushes and catches up with his friends and notices some candies in his pocket but doesn't remember buying them. He starts to feel nostalgic upon seeing them and starts crying without knowing why. Meanwhile, Mizuho watches him from a distance, and once she's confirmed that everything has returned to normal, she walks away. On Mizuho's planet, she is being judged for allowing herself to be discovered during her observation mission on Earth. Furthermore, she's being accused of having physical contact with a human being and using her technology to enter Ki's mind without authorization. As a result, she's sentenced to lose her position as an interstellar inspector and to have the memory of her erased from all the people on Earth she got contact with. In addition, she will now be placed under custody. 1 year later, Ki and the others continue their lives as if nothing had happened, although Ki still carries a strange feeling of emptiness. And now, ever since he saw the box of candies that Mizuho left for him, he feels even more strongly that something is missing. Everything continued on as usual. Hyoshi and Ki remained together, Ki and Ichigo stopped experiencing fainting spells, and Ichigo even managed to reconnect with her family. Professor Yamada underwent a makeover after winning his airplane contest. He dedicated the trophy to Harakawa. because with her support, he was able to complete his project. Mizuho is back on Earth because her family intervened to end her custody, although they don't agree with her decision as it will be painful for her to see Ki while he can't remember her. Nevertheless, she decides to do it. Everything unfolds much like the first time. She secures a teaching position, and the boys are once again excited to have a beautiful teacher. Once more, Ki doesn't pay much attention to her at first, but he eventually offers to help when Mizuho moves back into the neighboring house. Ki gets distracted by her chest once again, just like the first time. However, this time it's Mizuho who trips and falls on top of Ki. He then confesses to her that he remembered her the moment he saw her enter the classroom, as if all the memories rushed back to his mind. Mizuho tears up with joy, though she pouts because he didn't tell her immediately. But Ki hugs her and tells her he loves her, so they decide to get married again. Ki introduces Mizuho to his family, leaving them in awe at seeing Ki with such a beautiful woman. They then celebrate their marriage and embark on a honeymoon trip, and so they return to their cherished life as husband and wife. From then on, Ki and Mizuho have grown even closer. One morning, Ki goes to their bed to find his wife, but instead he finds Hatsujo. He gets a big shock, and Mizuho is horrified to witness the scene, as she never expected Ki to be involved with her own mother. Hatsujo tells Mizuho that she's overreacting, but the two of them start arguing about Hatsujo's behavior, causing Kei to flee to avoid getting involved in the argument. Maho was eavesdropping, and she surprises Ki by revealing that she has recorded everything he has done alone with her sister. This revelation makes Ki nervous and eager to get hold of that recording. Maho then manipulates him into going for a walk together. His friend Matavu sees them together and gets depressed, thinking that he's now the only one without a girlfriend. However, Ki quickly clarifies the situation by explaining that it's just his cousin, which relieves Matavu as he's not the only one without a girlfriend. Ki has to play along to keep his secret hidden. Suddenly, Hatsujo finds them and transports Matavu away from there. She then orders Miruru to transport her and Ki to a private location and block the location to prevent anyone from tracking them. They end up at a hotel, coincidentally seen by Ichigo and Kiyoshi passing by, who are surprised to see Ki going to a hotel with an older woman. Inside the hotel, they come across Ki and Hyoshi. Hyoshi is taken aback by the fact that Ki seems to be interested in older women, which annoys Hatsujo and leads her to send him away as well. Meanwhile, Harikawa feels down because the guy she used to like is at a hotel. However, Ichigo cheers her up by telling her not to worry, as she already has someone to do such things with. Harikawa becomes flustered, and just then the teacher appears along with Maho asking the girls if they've seen Ki. Harikawa hesitates to tell them, thinking it's a very private matter, but Ichigo doesn't mind and informs them of his whereabouts. On the other hand, Ki is tied up and immobilized, and Mizuho envisions all the things her mother could be capable of doing. Fearing the worst, she demands that Marie forcibly teleport them to wherever Miruru is. Suddenly, Miruru appears and falls onto Ki. Apparently, all of this was a plan by Hatsuho to add a little excitement to her daughter's relationship, creating an alluring situation for both of them. So finally, the objective is achieved, and even Miruru and Marie manage to find love. Back home, they get quite a scare as they walk closely together and unexpectedly run into Ki's friends. Fortunately, Ki's friends are much more intrigued by Hatsujo's spaceship, which flies by intentionally as she's heading back to her planet along with Maho. They're happy with the video they recorded of Mizuho and Ki.